Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I am foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
And this is episode 63. Hey Jacob, we're in different time zones.
Yeah, and you sound terrible.
Yeah, I'm just still recovering from that COVID thing, you know? It's a terrible 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
But that didn't stop you from flying across the globe.
That's right. And we're going to talk a little bit about it later on.
Yeah.
We've got quite a jam-packed episode today for everybody, so I think we can just, hop on right into it. We haven't done this segment in quite a while, but I think we got some new stuff. So let's talk a little bit about new acquisitions, Jacob. You got something interesting, or some things interesting that you received.
Yeah, so I got a Hakase pen. A very generous individual gave me actually a Hakase pen, which was quite remarkable. So I don't want to talk too much about my pen per se, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Hakase because it's one of those brands that you don't hear much about. Not even if you are in Japan and you go to the various, pen club meetups and pen shows that we go to. In fact, I would say Hakase is more obscure here than Ohashido is, which is another one of those small pen makers, because at least you can go buy an Ohashido easily at one of those department store events here around the Tokyo area, but that's not true with Hakase. But it's still, those two brands are still similar, I would say. They're similar in the sense that these are very small pen makers that have been around for close to a century. And they are like 1 or 2 person businesses, and they have a presumably small but a very loyal following customer base, and that is what has been sustaining them for almost a century. But the difference is that while Ohashido, or rather Mr. Uehara, he just makes whatever pens he feels like making when he wakes up in the morning, Hakase is a bespoke or like semi-bespoke pen maker. Have you had, or have you got a chance to work on any maybe customer Hakase pens?
Yeah, I actually have. One of our mutual acquaintances ordered several Hakase pens, and I was asked to rework one of the nibs on one of these. It takes notoriously a long time to order a Hakase, right?
Yeah, so currently the lead time I think is 14 months, and so it's another 3 months if you order urushi. So it's longer waiting time than if you order a Bokumundo urushi work.
Does he do it himself?
For the urushi, I'm not sure, but the rest, I think there were 2 pen makers before. There was the current owner of Hakase, I think, is his 3rd generation. What's it, Yamamoto, I think his name is. The 3rd generation owner, it's like a family business. And then before there was this other guy called Harumi Tanaka, I think, and he's the one who was in that semi-famous YouTube movie about Hakase. I think that guy retired like a decade ago, so I think there's now only one person, Mr. Yamamoto, that is making everything, well, except for the nib feeder and converter.
Yeah, so Hakase is really known for these exotic and wild materials, right? I mean, some materials are illegal.
Yeah, so the range of materials is kind of interesting. It starts at like ebonite and like various kinds of wood, and then you have at the more exotic end, you have like buffalo horn, you got ivory, and then in the past they had a tortoise shell, which they stopped offering a few years ago, and that was I think there's a warning on the website saying that some of the materials, and I think specifically mentions tortoiseshell, cannot be imported into the US.
Yep. Yep. And also like buffalo horn and stuff like that. I think they had some ivory, I want to say.
Yeah, exactly. So buffalo, they're still offered to this day, ivory and buffalo horn. So you can order that, but there's still a warning on the website that some of the materials cannot be. You may not be able to import some of these materials into your home country. So check with local regulations before you order, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is that Hakase is semi-bespoke in the sense that they have a few kind of shapes you can choose, whether you want like a flat top. There, like I think that is long and short flat top, or if you want a cigar shaped pen. But then you have all kinds of customization options. In addition to materials that we talked about, you can choose what kind of trims you want. If you want one of those fat like rings on like the barrels that works as a roll stopper, or if you want like a normal clip, or one of those tiny clips, or what else you want, and then they ask you if you post your pen or not, and depending on whether you want a postable pen or not, that they change the design a bit. But then the most interesting thing to me is the nib, because I'm not sure if you checked their website, but Hakase offers what they call a grade 15 and a grade 10 nib. So the one I have here is a grade 15. A grade 15 is just pilot size 15. In other words, it's the same size nib as in a Pilot Custom 823 or 743, but the difference is that it's got a custom Hakase stamp. So not just a laser engraving, but a custom like stamp. But size 10 is more interesting, because for size 10 you can choose whether you want pilot or sailor. And here's where it's getting really interesting, because in both cases, whether you choose pilot or sailor, you get 14K. So pilot is 14K, so presumably grade 15 pilot means, well, pilot size 10, so the same size nib as in, Custom Heritage 912 or 742. But grade 10 sailor is 14K, and there's not much information about that nib other than the fact that it's 14K. Sailor doesn't sell a nib that they themselves call grade 10, right? But Sailor does sell a nib that is exactly the same length as pilot size 10, and that is the Pro Gear nib. The Pro Gear nib and the Prophet 21 nib, what we call the large sailor nibs, they're exactly the same length, or almost exactly the same length as pilot size 10. So this makes me wonder if it's perhaps possible that Hakase still to this day, offer these large Sailor 14K nibs that we've been talking about, that we wish that Sailor would bring back. Maybe they were never gone, but maybe they were only offered in recent years through Hakase.
Yeah, and also Ohashido has them, right?
I think Ohashido now has the small nibs. I could be wrong about that. So that one I'm not sure about, but I've seen a number of photos of Hakase pens with what clearly looks like large 14K nibs on Instagram. So I think we need to investigate this further, but there seems to be a good chance that these nibs are currently offered. And this is what I think is so fascinating, that you have this pen maker that has very, very low production, very slow production. I mean, they make, I think I read somewhere that make like 10 pens per month. So very, very small production. And yet they somehow managed to get both Pilot and Sailor to make custom nibs with proper custom stamp, which doesn't seem like it would make any economic sense. So this would probably just another example of these, long-time relations that you also wrote about in your Wancher post, that these pen makers, they offer these strange deals based on old relations rather than what makes business sense.
And so these guys are in Tottori, but you wrote in your Instagram post, which by the way is a great source of information, that this, I mean, this is a third generation business, and the first generation is really, from the 30s, right? So, I mean, these guys started in what's modern day China. There's some imperial past there, but these people have been in the business maybe, almost as long as pilot and as long as sailor themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, that they get these nibs is probably due to that, very long stand, almost 100-year relationship. It's not that anybody can go and buy something like this from the manufacturers. So it really does take that kind of a long-term commitment to sailor, and we're talking about 50 years above.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's obviously one of the big advantages that Hakase has now. I mean, that's really what sets them apart from, say, Eboya or even Style Art. So both Eboya and Style Art, they make very beautiful pen bodies, but they are limited to like standard nibs. So in the case of Eboya, they just stick like a factory Bock nibs on it, and Style Art, beautiful pens, but they haven't been around so long that they have these relations, so they have to buy, I believe, stock pilot pens and stick those nibs on it, which, if that's all you have available, then that's a sensible option. But it's clearly to Hakase's advantage the fact that they have these strange deals that allows them to have custom nibs from both pilot and sailor.
Yeah, but these folks, I mean, we're going into the weeds of it now, but these folks actually also grind their own nibs according to what the customer wants.
Yeah, so if you look at the order form, it's really interesting. They ask you what angle you write at. They ask you what kind of pressure you write with. They ask you like what slant you have. They even ask you what kind of paper you write on. Do you write on like washi paper or like techo paper or like letter writing paper? So they ask all kinds of questions and even ask you to shoot a video of you writing, basically, right, and to send that video to them so that they can customize the nib or tune the nib accordingly.
Yeah. So I worked on one of the pilot, I think it must have been pilot 15 nibs. I won't comment too much about the nib grind itself, but I do want to point out that it is very rare for a Japanese company to offer custom nib grinds from, the maker of the pen. I mean, as we've discussed on this podcast many, many times, this is just not really a thing in Japan. So I was wondering, why they would offer this service. So it turns out more than half of their customers are overseas.
Yeah, that's also what sets them apart from Ohashiro, because it's almost impossible to buy an Ohashiro from overseas unless you go from some like middleman. But you can order a Hakase pen from overseas. They have an order form in English, so it's all very. I mean, it's obvious from the website that they have, and they are targeting overseas customers.
Yep. What do you think about the workmanship of these pens? Because these pens are notoriously expensive.
Yeah, they're not all expensive though. I mean, if you look at the price, like they have this like big table matrix on their website. Cheapest one is, or the most affordable one, I'm not sure what to call it, is 60,000 yen, which is still like a fair amount of money for a fountain pen, but it's not. I mean, some like regular Sailor Pro gears are in that price range nowadays, right? So that's not extreme by today's standards, but then it goes. Then it can be more than over 500,000 yen, depending on what options. If you want a large nib and if you want like a buffalo horn, then it gets very expensive. So the one I have is the only Hakase I've ever seen, ever used, and I would say the craftsmanship, the fit and finish is just perfect. It's the ebonite is polished like it looks like urushi. The threads are like silky smooth, and it's hard to describe in words, but it's very satisfying to post it. I have to show it to you when you get back to Japan. But it's incredibly satisfying to post this pen, and the nib just writes very well.
Which nib did you get?
So this is a size 15. So basically, or grade 15. They call it grade 15, but pilot size 15.
Right.
And it's I think it's the medium. It doesn't say on it. So again, I didn't order it myself. And the pen I got didn't have any instructions. I had to go to the website and try to figure out which model I have.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of the website, let's end on this note. But if you're on the English version of the Hakase website, it has a story, and then prologue. And then the second, button on the menu, it's Supreme Quest.
Yeah, the translation is a bit cryptic at times, for sure. But at least there's a English version, and you can click around a bit and figure out what it all means.
Yeah,
take some guessing.
But I think it's quite fitting that they have a section called Supreme Quest, because for a lot of Japanese pen collectors, owning a Hakase is the supreme quest.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. And then they have a real sepia ink as well, right?
Yeah, which is actually like squid ink, which apparently... So I saw a review, I read a review by Macchiato Man. He bought it a while back, and apparently it's an expensive ink, and it smells like fish.
What is it? $80?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, around that. All right, so moving on, we got some new platinums.
There is this annual Maruzen sale going on. Maybe it was already started while you were in Japan, but it's going on now. And normally these Maruzen sales aren't too interesting because they have these like no-name notebooks and like Parker ballpoints that haven't been sold, so they are selling them at 30% off. But this time they had some Platinum 3776 pens. In fact, they had 4 of them in total, and they were sold at 30% off the old retail price, which was like 10,000 yen. So these were like a bit over 7,000 yen, and they all 4 had coarse nibs, and I bought all of them.
Wow, it's a good deal. Especially now, it's harder and harder to find these platinum nibs on like Mercari and Yahoo auctions, especially those larger nibs.
Yeah, and I asked, I was a bit surprised that these were available, and I asked, are these nibs not very popular? And the person that sold the pen said that Platinum's nibs are a bit more stiff than Pilot and Sailor nibs, and apparently the combination of like stiff and coarse is not very popular. At least that was the explanation. So.
Right. Even though the 3776 is one of the most popular pens, it's just that stiff and broad.
Exactly. So that's all I had to say about that. I was just very excited about getting them for this price, but I have a feeling that you would have bought them if you were there.
That's fair. I would have been very excited as well. All right, moving on. I also got some new old stuff. So as I was doing my research on Wancher and Wajima, one of the resources that I was able to use is actually this studio called Senshudo, and I found them actually on Instagram. I think I saw an ad for them, and they were making some urushi bowls or something, and I've been trying to make a conscious effort to follow a few more urushi artists or artisans, studios, because I think most of the pen community now know, Bookmondo, it's a very big name in urushi pen lovers world, I guess. But Bakumondo, she doesn't do all the styles, and in particular, she doesn't do makie.
Yeah,
But-
she refuses to do makie.
Yeah, she doesn't do makie. So I saw that they sent Shido people, and I remember it was some business card holders, and on the bottom it says we take orders. I was like, oh, okay, so I saved that for the future. One day, I was scrolling through their feed, and I saw that they had a ballpoint pen that was lacquered in Urushin Makie. And I remembered that they take orders. So I sent a DM to them. I said, hey, do you do fountain pens as well? And they said, we've done fountain pens in the past. We can't say anything until we have the product in hand. So can you send us the product? So what I did was I kind of disassembled all the parts. I sent them the pen over without the nib, and they received the parts, and they said, oh yeah, we can probably do makie on this, but it won't be wajima nuri, because wajima nuri is reserved for urushi on wood. And so this is just urushi done in wajima. Are you okay with that? I don't really care what it's called. That's, I think, more of like an ego thing. So I said, sure, go ahead. Do the exact same goldfish motif that you have on the ballpoint pen, because, I've already seen it, so I know that they're quite good at it. And they said, okay. Now, this is the difference between a, person who's starting out and an established studio who does lots and lots of custom work. So they actually did tableware for the 34th G8 Summit in 2018. And so they're very, very, established. They're very, very, well regarded, I suppose. I started working on the pen, and they said, can you please send us the nib, because we're going to make the goldfish align with the nib. And that's a detail that, honestly, I didn't even think of. I was like, yeah, I'm just excited to get some goldfish makie. And I didn't really think about the alignment. And that's the care and attention that a real professional studio asks. And that was shocking to me. And so I sent them the nib, and they sent it back to me. And of course, the pen is fantastic. You can see photos on my Instagram profile, on my Instagram feed. It's spectacular, because the makie, it's not just a single color. There's actually somehow some transparency in these goldfish. And if you see goldfish in real life, they're not exactly opaque creatures. So the level of detailing, the scales, there's also like some small rod end pieces to show like water. It's incredible, this piece. And they topped off the pen. Oh, the pen I sent was a Mont Blanc 149. They topped it off with a gold makie Mont Blanc star. And so I just thought these people were real professionals. Now I want to spend a little bit of time actually talking about the ordering process and the way that they actually operate. So in order to order, I sent them a DM on Instagram, but they said, can you please email us? I guess it's for record keeping purposes. But I was in contact with a man called Mr. Okazaki, which is funny because that's the same surname as Taizo. But the studio is actually called Okazaki Shikiten. And Okazaki-san, he is the Nushiya. So he's in a more, I guess, horse riding kind of scenario. This person would be considered the stable master, and it's my understanding that Okage-san actually doesn't do any urushi application. Instead, when I asked him, "Hey, is this possible? Is that possible?" he would always say, "Let me speak to a few artisans." So it was never, "Let me speak to one artisan." It was, "Let me speak to my different artisans to see what they can do." And the reason why that is because in Wajima Urushi, you don't have one person doing the entire pen like the way Hiroko does, right? Like the way Bakumondo does. They actually have people who do the sanding of the base product. They have people who just apply black. They have makia artists. They have people who do the top layers. They have people who polish. So when you ask, is this possible? It's not just one person making the decision. It's like 7 people. And that's the kind of division of labor that I think really makes that individual artisan just an absolute pro at that individual aspect that they're doing. But as a result, you don't have, or at least mine, and I didn't request this, but mine doesn't have the signature of any particular artisan. Next time I do business with them, I'll probably ask for a group signature. But this pen, the process, it took about 2 months. It was about $1,000, which is not bad at all considering what you get. But yeah, this ordering process, next time I work with them, I'm definitely gonna go back, and I think I'd like to go visit them in Wajima as well. I have a friend who's gone to Wajima a few times now, and she says, just lots of studios. So I definitely want to go in person to thank them, and also to see if we can do more business together in the future.
So is this the studio that you think would accept orders from overseas? Is there any chance for our listeners not in Japan to order from this studio?
So I believe their website even is there is an English version, I want to say, or maybe not, But if you use a translating service, maybe. But they are on Instagram. So, yeah, I'm looking at their store right now. It doesn't seem like they're opposed to ordering or orders from overseas. I do remember that they did have here you go. Oh, okay. So they can't ship overseas. But if you have like a black ship or something, maybe you'd be able to have them ship to a domestic address. However, you do need a deep level of Japanese to communicate with Okagaki-san, because the kind of detail in the questions that they ask, it's not just, do you want raden on the pen? It's much more specific than that. It's even, hey, where do you want to place that picture? How do you want the rotations to be? That kind of depth of questioning might be challenging, but yeah, I think because they do have some international experience, the way I did it was, I just took something from Instagram. I said, just do this.
Yeah, but that's probably a good way to start. And I mean, that always was one of the reasons why Hiroko insists that first time customers choose something from her feed, because that avoids any for some reason details can get lost in translation, expectations, and so on. It's much easier if you have something that you can just you do again,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But then another question I have is method of payment, because given your description of this workshop studio, I would assume that this is like traditional furikomi bank transfer.
So you can either pay by Shikomi or credit card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they have an online website, and they actually sell the majority of the things that they sell are like business card holders, um, coat hangers. They do a lot of umbrellas, bowls. But because I ordered directly, they actually sent me an invoice where I could pay with credit card.
Hmm.
Yeah, so no shipments outside of Japan, but maybe you can get a black ship. All right, on to pen news. I've been away, so take us away.
Yeah, so as I said, I went to Marzen to buy these platinums with course nibs, right? And the person, the staff, sales staff at the time was Shishikura-san, like this pen doctor that's probably most known outside Japan for the sparkly sailors. But as we have said before, I believe she occasionally works at Marzen, right? So I talked to her and I ended up asking her about her pens and if she was planning to do any more models in the future, and she said she's working on 2 models that both are going to be released this autumn. I think she even said September. And if you remember last year there were 2 Shishikura pens. One was sold by herself, and the other one was sold through Marzen at the autumn event, right? Remember that?
Yeah, so I asked them also as well. I think they said September, but last year they had a funky method where I mean there's Marzens everywhere, but for the big ones with the fountain pen section, there are 2 main ones in Tokyo, and this event was a simultaneous event at these 2 locations. You can only buy 1 pen from each location.
I remember that. Yeah, you have to run back and forth.
Yeah, so that was a bit funky.
Same story this year that she's working on 2 pens. One is going to be a purple one that she's going to sell herself. She actually gave me more details, but unfortunately I forgot about it. I need to go back and ask again. But the other one, she said, is going to be a yellow one that's going to be sold through Marzen. So in other words, she all but confirmed that there is going to be a Marzen event this autumn. And the reason why the pen is yellow is because it's, of course, a lemon themed pen. So this is going to be Marzen's maybe first lemon sailor pen.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because traditionally these lemon pens have been made by Pilot, but they also commissioned, I think, must have been a lower quality pen that you can get, like those things you can get from magazines, the Lapita pens.
Yeah, there was one very recently that's also still today, I think, sold at Marzen. It was like 500 yen, like mini lemon, I believe. But yeah, it looks like one of those lemon pens, but it's obviously like some IPG nib and whatever. Yeah, but the Pilot, I think the Pilot made lemon pens. I think that there have been at least 3 of them so far. They always sell out very fast, and now they are very expensive on second-hand markets. So I suspect this could be one of the fastest selling Shishikura pens so far.
Yep. Yeah, so I think that would be very interesting.
Yes. The other news, so I talked earlier this year about how it's going to be another Wagner pen this year, which to no one's surprise, but I couldn't really say anything more about what the pen's can look like because I promised not to do that. But yesterday, Morrison did a blog post where he put some details. I guess it's now the embargo is lifted. So this year's Wagner Platinum pen is going to be a slightly off-white kind of ivory color, not real ivory as in Hakase, but an ivory color matte sandblasted pen with like nice finish, so with these nice grooves or shaper cut or whatever it's called. But more interestingly, the trims are going to be black, so ruthenium plated. So you're gonna have a white pen with ruthenium plated trims and ruthenium plated nib, and apparently this ruthenium plating is the main reason why the pen has been delayed, because it was meant to be available for the spring event, and now it's been like 3-4 months since then. And apparently it's also it's related to war in Ukraine. Somehow the import of ruthenium has been disrupted because of that war.
Okay.
So it's going to be available now next month. And then there was one more pen that he talked about. And it's going to be the anniversary pen for the 4th anniversary of Morestan's Pen Clinic. And this is going to be a platinum president. You know, they supposedly discontinued platinum president. And it's going to be a translucent platinum president. I don't actually know which color, but it's going to be a translucent platinum president. And it's going to come with the 2 nibs. One is just a medium, the other one is a coarse nib.
Okay, that's not common in the platinum presidents.
Definitely not. And he wrote on his website that I expect the coarse nibs to get sold out pretty fast, but I'm opening up for pre-orders now, only for Wagner members. So email me if you want any coarse nibs. So I emailed him the moment I saw that. So I already have pre-ordered 2 with coarse nibs.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
And when I did that, he replied and he gave some more details about that pen. Let's just say that these are not going to be just plain coarse nibs. They're going to come with a nib grind. And I can't say who's going to do the grinds, but I think you can guess based on recent history.
Yeah. So how much are they?
I don't know. I don't know what the price is. I don't know what the color is, but I pre-ordered anyway.
All right. Maybe I got to pre-order some as well.
Probably have to. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next is an I don't know what to really make of this, I suppose, but I thought it was pretty funny. So we had Frank from Narwhal on a few episodes ago, I think, almost 2-3 months ago, and at the time they were embroiled in scandal, I suppose, with Twisby. But since then, they've kind of settled down, and they had the joint statement that we were talking about. However, a few days ago, I saw this post on Reddit or something, and I sent it to you, and I said, "Hey, Narwhal is changing their name." So I'm not even gonna try to say this name. Can you say it?
My Icelandic is a bit rusty. Navalur? I don't know.
Yeah, so that's my best guess as well, like Navalur. But I heard that it's going to be still pronounced Narwhal. I don't know, Navalur. I don't know, whatever. But let me read out the statement that they put out. It says, "Meet Navalur. Narwhal Pens officially entering a transition period for a brand name from Narwhal Pens to Navalur today. Navalur, the Icelandic orthography of narwhal, embodies the origins of narwhals who live around the Arctic waters near Iceland year-round. This rebranding effort is in light of legal translations for trademark registration, since narwhal is not unique enough to be trademarked for narwhal pens. This rebranding will also allow us to optimize search engine results, allowing pen enthusiasts to better discover #Navalur." What do you think?
It makes sense that they may want to change the name for more SEO juice or to have a more unique name. I mean, I did go to that trademark database and I found like a handful of other narwhal trademarks. Some of them were like outdoor brands and the rest I can't remember. So that makes sense. What surprises me is the timing. Is it just a coincidence that it's happened shortly after the Twisby settlement? And if we just in that case, it's kind of unfortunate, I think, for Narwhal because they came out sort of on top. They seemingly won that,
Right.
if you will, because they celebrated that settlement. They put it out on Instagram. They sent it to the retailers. It was the first thing you saw when they went to the website. They were clearly happy about that. So if you don't have any more information, and we don't have any more, at least I don't have any more information about the background for this now or the timing. It kind of seems like this is part of some concession, something they agreed to do.
So, I don't think it's a concession, but I do think that Narwhal is probably, I mean, the pen community, it might be very easy to understand, but yeah, I think just I think there's not much more to the story beyond what's written on there. And I remember at first when I sent it to you, and you can check your calendars if it's April 1st. So I actually saw Frank a few days ago, and I said hi, and then I said, "Is it true?" Those are the only 3 words that I said, and he said, "Yes, it's true. We're changing our name." And I think, yeah, he said the timing might be a bit unfortunate. I think there might be a few different aspects involved, but I think they want to take it to the next level, right? They've been Narwhal pens for a while, but they've never trademarked their brand. I think they want to take it to the next level, and they want to evolve into a more serious company. And then when they tried to do that, they realized that the name that they had picked in the beginning, wasn't going to work out for them in that registration. So, less people speak Icelandic. Might be easier to get a trademark.
Yeah, but it might be more difficult to pronounce. I said, joking to you, I think they should now go all in and rename their models after like Icelandic volcanoes, which are like near impossible to pronounce if you don't understand Icelandic. I remember fairly recently there was like some volcano was in the news, at least in Europe, because like some Icelandic volcano erupted and it's a big plume of smoke, and that disrupted air traffic. So all the news was covering this, and all the news outlets, they were equally struggling to pronounce the name of that volcano. I sent you. Let me send this to you again over line.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try to read that.
So if you press the play button there and hear the proper Icelandic pronunciation.
Eyjafjallajökull.
So I think that should be the next model name.
I'll bring it to Frank.
You should do that. Yeah. But it's an unusual choice. The timing is, I think it's unfortunate, because I think they got a lot of SEO juice from this drama and the fact that they seemingly won. I think there's been more Google searches for Narwhal in like the last few months than before. So it's not the best time to change the name, but maybe it's the best choice in the end. Who knows?
Yep. The next topic, I don't really want to spend too long. I just thought it was kind of a funny thing. But we've talked about how Tono Limbs is, just pumping out new inks. Now, this is a kind of, I think, a lost in translation thing. But they've come out now with a new series. And when I saw it, I was kind of taken aback. So this new series is called Happy Ending. And maybe they don't know the euphemism behind happy ending, but I think these inks are actually quite nice. They have happy ending grape. I think they have, just a bunch of different happy ending inks. Happy ending licorice, happy ending peach, which sounds really dirty. Happy ending lime. So they've got these 4 happy ending inks, and this is a classic, lost in translation thing. But these are all exclusive inks for their partners. And actually, the happy ending grape looks pretty good. But I'll never buy it because I don't need a happy ending ink.
How did you even hear about it?
Oh, there's also happy ending soda. Yes. So I heard about it basically just through the Instagram algorithm, I guess.
Yeah, the feed is becoming more and more algorithmic. You don't get to decide what to see, right?
Yeah, and it just popped up, and as I said, I took a double take. I'm like, what are they calling this ink? But yeah, it's some dirty names there.
Who knows? Maybe it's intentional. You never know.
Yeah. All right. So having the happy ending inks out of the way, you put in a note in the show notes why Sanzen Tomoe River is different.
Yeah, so this is just a short thing that I discovered today. So we have of course covered this Sanzen Tomoe River S extensively, and we have talked about how the paper is slightly different than Tomoegawa's Tomoe River. It's a little bit thicker and it's slightly stiffer, or has a different feel to it. And it turns out that is not an accidental, unwanted side effect from just moving production to another machine. It is very much intentional. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I watched I watched an Instagram live by Yamamoto Paper earlier today. So they were announcing some new products, including a Sanzen paper pad and some other stuff. And they ended up talking a little bit about the history of Tomoe River and talked about how Tomoegawa was looking to outsource. They were talking to various contractors, and then time was running out, so they did the Sanzen deal instead. And then Sanzen decided that they wanted to tweak. They wanted to come up with their own recipe, their own formula, if you will. And specifically, they wanted to solve one problem with Tomoe River, and that is that. So one of the most popular pens in Japan, and we covered that recently, is Pilot's Friction, right? So Pilot's Friction pens with erasable ink are almost ubiquitous in Japan. You can go to any of your convenience stores around the corner, you're going to find a selection of Friction pens. And it turns out that the Friction pens are also very popular among people who use planners. So people use the Friction pens to write in planners, which makes sense, right? Because, plans change, right? So you erase and you write something new in your planner. The problem with Tomoe River is apparently that as you erase the ink with your Friction pen, then the Tomoe River paper gets all crinkly and warped and messy, and that is the exact problem that they wanted to solve. So the reason why Sanzen's paper is slightly thicker, slightly stiffer, is that they wanted to make it more Pilot friction friendly.
Yeah, that's a very specific issue. I think I understand why, but I feel like it's not as good of a paper for, fountain pen users anymore. But maybe they'll come up with the 68 GSM.
But it's not as a niche feature as you might think, because we have also covered recently Kokuyo's Jibun Techo planner, which is a very popular planner in Japan, right? And Kokuyo...
And not very good for fountain pens.
You could say that. Kokuyo replaced... they switched from Tomoe River to their own internally developed paper called Thin Paper a few years ago. And if you go to the product page on Kokuyo's website for Thin Paper, they specifically say that Thin Paper is better than Tomoe River for friction pens. So apparently this is a very big deal, using Pilot friction pens with planners.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And, these friction pens, as you said, are very popular. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that they did it. But, yeah, I do think that it's a bit sad. For me.
For fountain pen users, yeah, it's not...
yeah.
Well, in the case of Tomoe River S, I still think it's a very good paper. In fact, I prefer it over Tomoegawa's paper. But yeah, it's not optimized for fountain pens. You can argue that more of an happy accident, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, and almost coming on to our last topic. So, if the listeners didn't know, I alluded to it earlier, but I'm actually right now in the DC area. I'm attending the DC Pen Show as a vendor, and so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But getting here, and I'm sorry, this is going to turn into like a personal blog, but getting here was a disaster. So, flew Air Canada and had transit in Toronto. So, little did I know that Air Canada has been canceling 60% of their flights. So, I land in Toronto, and they said, "Sir, your flight is canceled. We're booking you for tomorrow with a different airline." And so, long story short, they lost my baggage, and here I was like, well, what am I gonna do? All the things I was gonna sell are in my baggage. Back and forth, hours until I had to just go down into the baggage claim and get my own bags. But luckily, I'm at the show now. It's been 2 days so far. Great days. I think one thing that I want to highlight first is just how different in terms of like the organization the DC Pen Show and the Tokyo Show is. So I also booked the Tokyo Show for later this fall, and a few weeks ago they sent us this handbook, this show guidebook. It's like 70 pages long. They send this book to us, and they call a 2-hour vendor meeting. It's like, oh, it must be an important meeting. So I read through the guidebook, and then I attend the meeting. So it turns out they wanted to do what they call yomiawase, which is they wanted to read the guidebook together. So we started reading the guidebook line by line together. And I was like, I already read this guidebook because you sent it to us. But anyways, so that's the Japanese way. The DC Pen Show way is that I didn't know where my tables were. And Thursday apparently is kind of like a free-for-all. You can just set up shop wherever you want. But on Thursday, I finally found out where I was going to be assigned on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I went over, set up, and then Friday morning when I wake up, turns out I've been moved. And the new location is actually a better location for me, but it's all really played by ear. People don't really know what's going on. I didn't have power for the first hour. And so I found it very, very funny, the contrast between, the Tokyo show and the DC show. I think probably in the middle is something of a happy medium. But what surprised me about the DC show is actually not the number of visitors. I think the number of visitors are quite tame. I personally expected it to be a lot busier. Yeah, it wasn't so busy, but there were hundreds of vendors, like almost 400 vendors, must be upwards of 300s. And there's just so many vendors coming from Europe. Heard a lot of French, heard a lot of Italian, Turkey, and that really was eye-opening.
Yeah, I think both Tokyo and DC claim to be the world's biggest pen show, but they use different metrics. I think Tokyo uses attendees and DC probably uses like vendors.
Yeah, but there were huge number of vendors, and 10 nib grinders there at the show. People walk up to me and they say, "Do you have availabilities for today?" And I'm sure it's the same with all the other grinders. Absolutely not. Might have some slots on Sunday, but the Main show days are just fully booked out, even with 10 nip grinders. Whereas at the Tokyo show, you can walk in and sit down with Nagahara without an appointment.
Although increasingly that's not the case, but yeah, that was the case early on, and now he's become very popular.
Right. But even at the Osaka Pen show, Alessa just walked in and she had an immediate availability. Yeah. So, hopefully we do grow that community. But I did think it was interesting to point that out. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that this show, I mean, I knew this before, but being at the show really kind of reinforced this. This show, obviously, I mostly have Japanese products, but they actually, the attendees of this show are much more vintage focused. They're much more major European brand focused, and I think that's why you have so many Europeans coming. I had Bookmondo stuff on my. I still have Bookmondo stuff on my table. That's surprising. I have Shishikuras laid out, and maybe two people have touched them. These Ancora pens that are so popular that we know are so popular, haven't been getting a lot of attention at all. So, to me, what was interesting is that the contrast between, I think, what we know and the people who try to contact us for stuff, and there's this greater world out there, which is, obviously this show is still quite big, but more focused on either custom makers, which is downstairs, I haven't been, or just the big major European brands.
So when you talk about the vintage, are you talking about mostly like Western vintage, or is this a pen show where you can find like a Barnet pen or some old Pilot release?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I have a Athena safety pen from the 30s, very vintage. Nobody knows what Athena pen is. Right. And I had one Japanese collector come, and they got really excited about it, and then they bought two of my jumbo pens, which weren't working. But other than that, yeah, not a lot of. I think because the Athena pen looks just like a black pen from the outside. It's definitely less attention, and I think there's definitely more of a European focus on this show.
So I guess your audience is probably in San Francisco.
Yeah, so I am in a few Discord communities, and I said, yeah, I have two Shishikuras out on the table, and people are like, I can't believe it's not been sold, and I do think San Francisco is probably more of the audience for that, more Japanese, more modern pens. But that's all right. I think it's interesting, and I'm not worried about selling these pens in general, right? So
some of the Japanese vendors we talked to at Tips, they are going. If there's one US pen show they go to, it's San Francisco, because I guess it's shorter, but I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is that's probably where they expect the customers to be, and if you remember, some of those vendors said that the people who go to San Francisco in particular, they tend to buy a lot.
Yeah. So at least Bunga Box, Yamamoto Paper, Toyoka Craft, myself, we are what I know to be the Japanese delegation going to San Francisco. And yeah, I haven't been yet, but I think even by the next time we record, I wouldn't have been there. I'll be back in Japan to talk about the SF Pen show. But it is quite interesting, and I think at SF, these Bookmondo is not going to last. But I was also grinding and selling at the same time, and now I kind of regret not getting two tables. I only got one table. The merchandise takes up a lot of space, a lot of space. So I think next time I do something like that, I'll probably want two tables rather than one, because it was just not enough space to display everything, especially the inks. And I think, yeah, for the inks that I have, because they are pretty expensive because they're all, those gotochi inks, which actually cost us a lot of money to get as well. It's not just the price tag, it's actually the price of, going to the store in like, Tottori or like Hokkaido or wherever it is.
And then shipping them across the globe, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're pretty expensive inks. And I think unless you know what they are, it does sound outrageous that a sailor ink is $50, right? But, if you know what it is, you know that $50 is probably a fair price for it. So, I think at this show, probably much more European there. One thing that was quite interesting that I want to talk about is Esterbrook invited me to be on one of their events called Nib Wars.
I saw something about that. It was like you and Pendrielm and two more, right?
Yeah, so the contestants were myself, Penrealm, Annabelle from Appleboom, and Joshua Lax from JJ Lax Pen Company. He's up in New York. And yeah, this happened last night. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Really thank Esterbrook for hosting and organizing this. We weren't really told what we were going to do at the Nib Wars, but they had a few scenarios for us. They said, grind your interpretation of what you think somebody would write a love letter with, right, or something like this. So with 3 rounds, ultimately JJ Lax won the competition, so congratulations to Joshua. Really well deserved. He was the only one that came dressed as a Jedi, so I think there are some brownie points to be awarded there as well.
Star points for sure.
Yep. Even had the lightsaber that I'll be building in a few weeks. But yeah, definitely super awesome. Thank you to Esterbrook. It was a full house. There's an Instagram live, so you can probably catch that on IGTV. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think there's some controversy about whether this should or should not be a competition. But, I think especially, at least for me, I took it not very seriously. I didn't really care if we won or lost. And, the judges were very nice. They gave us, the lowest score they gave us was 8 out of 10, which is pretty good, right? So I think it was, in general, a good event. The logistics could probably have been better, but still, I think Nib was really fun. So, yeah, I did want to take the time to shout out Kat, Inky Cat Writes, Katie from A Year in Color. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for the Esterbrook team for organizing. Carrie, Barry, and I just realized that rhymes. Carrie, Barry, and Aziza for judging, and obviously all the audience for coming in, tuning in. Yeah, it was good fun. And so they're raffling off the nibs that we make, and all of the proceeds from this raffle will go to support the Ukrainian effort in resisting occupation. So
that's very nice.
Not only are the proceeds donated, Esterbrook, Kenro Industries, they will match dollar for dollar that donation. So yeah, I don't know who's hearing it by Sunday afternoon, but I think this is it's a great idea, great initiative. I really appreciated it. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, so that sounded like a lot of fun and well organized. I wanted to go back.
Well organized was not the word I would have used.
Okay. But I mean specifically the Nib Wars thing, like the event within the pen show.
No, yeah, I know. The well organized was not the word I would have used for that either.
Okay. But so going back to your nib grinding, I have a 2-part question. What kind of nib grinds were people asking for, and how many times did you hear the term togi grind?
I heard togi grind once, but that is the most popular grind that people have been asking me for. Doing quite a lot of mini naginatas. Yeah, I thought I would have less time, but I've been able to do even two or three pens in one 30-minute slot so far. And yeah, it's actually a lot more grinding than I expected. I didn't expect to be fully booked because I'm kind of an unknown quantity, right? The first time I've been here. But overall, really, really positive. Yeah, a lot of Nagina grinds. I think people who are here, they have all the grinds already, right? So, you know, they're really just trying for something new, and not everybody does these Naginata grinds.
Would you say that all of the people who went to your table to get a nib grind knew you from from the podcast or from Instagram or whatever? Or if not, if they didn't know you from before, what do you think was the reason why they chose a Naginata Togi grind from you?
Yeah, so definitely I would say 70% of people knew who I was, which was kind of funny because we've been on the live shows with our faces on the camera. So they knew what I looked like, but I have no idea what these people look like. And sometimes people like, I'm just gonna take a generic name, right? They'll be like, "Hi, I'm John," and I'll be like, "Well, which one is John? What's your Instagram handle?" And so that was pretty funny. And it was great to meet all the listeners. A lot of people told me, hey, they listen to the podcast religiously. They listen to every time it comes out, and that was really nice. I have my mother helping me out, and she was surprised that there's so many podcast listeners, and they just recognize you, and they come and say hi, which is really really, yeah, that was very nice. And they had a lot of nice things to say about the podcast. But yeah, I think the only criticism was they wanted it to be a weekly show, and they wanted us to do more of the podcast. Yeah, which I said, yeah, maybe not right now,
Right.
but who knows in the future? Maybe when we're retired in 40 years.
Something like that. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it was quite nice. And then the others who didn't know who I was, first of all, I was set up on Thursday. Most nib grinders weren't, and so people who walked around, they said, "Hey, do you have a available slot today?" And a lot of times the answer was no, because I had been booked out just weeks before, and and I did ask some people who weren't listening to the podcast and who didn't know who I was, how did you find me? And they said, well, just on the DC Pen Show website, there was a link to my website, and then that's where they were able to find me on Instagram and make an appointment. And there were also some walk-ins who asked, are there any availabilities for this afternoon? Again, very difficult, but I think all the grinders have all their slots filled up already. So yeah, some people just were, I guess, trying to find that last person who might have the miracle slot. I'll still have slots on Sunday. My Sunday is relatively free, but yeah, I do expect that to be a slower day.
But so for these people who didn't know you from before and they asked you for a Naginata Togi grind, would you say that is because you sort of you suggested that, or because you were advertising that, or because that is becoming a popular grind in general?
A lot of people said, "Hey, I read your blog post about it. I heard you talking about it on the show. So I'd like to try one." And I think that's how most of the people come to me for 99 grinds. There are a few Chinese people who ask for 99 grinds to write Chinese with, but yeah, that was
Sure.
more rare.
Mm.
Yeah, but again, most of these people have all sorts of different grinds already, so they just want to try something new.
One more question about DC, not related to grinding, but what kind of COVID protocols did they have, and how was that different from Tokyo?
Oh, I would say only 10% of people are masked.
Oh,
Me being one
wow.
of the 10%. But yeah, it's mask optional. Some people wear masks, some people don't. There's not much protocol, not much hand sanitizing. Yeah, I mean, basically, it's like the pandemic's over here.
That must be a bit of a difference coming from Japan, where you can't really be indoors without both hand sanitation and a mask.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that I got COVID a few weeks ago instead of, now. that would have been a disaster. But yeah.
I imagine I would feel uncomfortable being in a situation like that where.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thousands of people unmasked in a pretty cramped ballroom.
Cover protocols aside, it sounds like, and even though it was perhaps a bit disorganized, it sounded like you had a lot of fun and met some people that, for the first time, that you've only known online, right?
Yeah, and that's definitely a surreal experience. It is very cool. As of the recording time, I'll have 2 more days at the show, but it's been good so far. All I want is for people to buy more of my pens.
I'm sure you won't have a single pen left after San Francisco.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm actually quite busy here in the U.S. I'm here for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So I have DC this weekend. Next weekend I'm going to Dromgools. The weekend after I'm going to New York. And then the weekend after that I'm going to San Francisco. So Dromgools won't have a sign-up sheet. It's kind of, walk in, first come, first served. Yoseka, I'm already booked out, and that caught me by surprise because I was booked out in like 5 hours-ish. It opened up that evening, and then the next morning I woke up and it was already full. So that was a surprise. I believe I'll also be at Fountain Pen Hospital on that Saturday. And then, we have San Francisco, which I haven't opened up signups yet. But yeah, it's a busy summer for CY.
Yeah, but that's good. That's good. I'm sure. It sounds like you're having fun as well. So then, did you say you're coming back in September?
Yeah, I'll be flying on September 1st.
Nice.
So I might even be able to match your Tokyo time zone because you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I can, record earlier. We can even have, quote unquote lunch, as you say, at 10:30.
Yeah, sounds perfect. Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. So the last piece of news, which is very good news, is that Pelican Hubs is back.
Yeah, I saw that. It's definitely a pleasant surprise. I think I've been to 2 or 3 Pelican Hubs here in Tokyo so far. The first one I went to was in 2018, and that's the first time I met Kue, actually. That was before we had much of a pen group here, and it's been fun at Pelican Hubs every time, and we missed Pelican Hubs just like we missed that Itoya Ink event, so we're happy that it is back.
Yeah, and it's cool because there are so many locations that will confirm just after 24 hours.
Yeah.
I remember when I sent you the link, I think only like an Indian city was confirmed, but that was like 2 minutes afterwards. But Tokyo has now been confirmed. None of us need to be hub masters. It's okay. And yeah, I think it's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun to see people who, we haven't seen in a long time, who only go to the Pelican Hubs. But
yeah, because it's actually,
I
always found that interesting. It's a slightly different community. Like I think I've been like 3 Pelican Hubs here, and like half of those people at Pelican Hubs are not like at any other event, or I've never seen them at any other events here in Tokyo, whether it's like Wagner or Tokyo Pen Show or Tonodemus or whatever. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Pelican Hubs. I think it's going to be lots and lots of fun. I think we're going to, have a blast. And I'm looking forward to this year's ink. I think that's always a highlight. And last time we had some bingo. The Hubmaster was really, really good. So, yeah, hopefully we'll, have the same Hubmaster. And even if it's not the same Hubmaster, I'm sure it's going to be great. Pelican Hubs is really one of the few things that manufacturers do for us, right? So, or rather, we do for ourselves and do marketing for them. But it's nice to have a manufacturer kind of led event. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, and it must take a lot of effort to organize. I'm sure it's expensive to. I mean, there's a lot of bottles of ink that they're going to give out as well, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, I know everybody else is too.
Yep.
All right, so I think that brings us to the end of the episode. If you liked it, please share it with your friends, share it with your family members, blast it on the speaker when you wake up. I heard people say that they like to listen to it while they're cooking. People like to listen to it while they're mowing the lawn. So keep doing that. Maybe take a large speakerphone outside when you're mowing your lawn so your neighbors can hear it too. I'm just kidding. Don't get in trouble. But yeah, do help us share the word. It really helps, especially when you talk about us on social media. You talk about us on forums like Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you communicate, Discord, Slack, wherever you connect with pen fans. It's always really helpful. We're recruiting for listener questions. We don't know when we're gonna answer all of them yet, but we've been low on questions recently, so definitely check out our website. Ask us a question over there. It's a Google Forms, it's pretty easy. And if you've been listening up to now, thank you so much. And if you're at the DC Pen shows, if you're in Houston, New York, San Francisco, come say hi. Be more than happy to meet you, and would love to have a chat and get to know you guys more. Jacob, anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. It's been an unusually long episode, so let's end it here.
All right. So thank you, everybody. This has been episode 63. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.